G'day trendsetters, I'm JOM of Gravel Cyclist and I'm coming to you today with something different, namely a tyre review. There's only going to be one tyre review, even though I've got 4 samples sitting here, but this is from a name from the past, a blast from the past if you will, American Classic. The company disappeared from the cycling landscape a couple of years ago, but returns in 2021. Reborn, if you will, with an extensive line of tyres for road and the gravelly road less travelled. A little bit of history. American Classic was founded way back in 1982 by Mr. Bill Shook. Bill was a top-notch bicycle racer in the 1970s, hailing from Ohio. He was also educated in the field of mechanical engineering and was somewhat dissatisfied with some of the crappy components he saw back in the early 70s, mid-70s and early 80s. So he thought, I'm going to do something about that. He designed a range of products and American Classic was founded. Until just a couple of years ago, American Classic had a rather extensive product range with many high-zoot wheels, a few of which I still have in my personal collection, and the venerable American Classic seatpost, a timeless design. I mentioned this earlier, the company returns in 2021 with an extensive line of tyres. There are 8 in all, 2 for the road, 1 for commuting, and 5 for the gravelly roads less travelled. Before me here, I have 3 tyres for gravel and 1 tyre for road. The gravel tyre models are Kimberlite, Udden, Aggregate, Krumbein, and Wentworth. I'm fortunate to have the Udden, Aggregate, and Krumbein models to review, but this video is going to feature the Krumbein model, which I have in 650B by 47mm. It's also available in 700C by 40 and 700C by 50 in black sidewall or tan sidewall. It's been a while since I've ridden 650B, so I said, let's get spicy with this review. I'll also be reviewing the Timekeeper tyre, the road tyre, which measures 700C by 28mm. Before I cover the specs of the Krumbein tyre, these tyres, every single one of them, are super cheap. The Timekeeper tyre, for example, is $35 US. That's for a tubeless road tyre. The Krumbein, the Aggregate, and the Udden, they're all similarly priced. That is insane pricing. Now, onto the specs of the Krumbein. It is designed for loose gravel and single track type conditions. So it's perfect for those sorts of riders who like to take their gravel bike, their drop bar bike, etc. onto some crazy situations, some gnarly trail riding, whatever you're into. The aggressive side lugs are designed to provide cornering traction and grip across muddy and loose conditions, whilst the chamfered centre tread ensures low rolling resistance, but also a healthy dose of traction. The 120 TPI casing construction also includes American Classic's Stage 5S flat protection. This is the beefiest of their flat protection, so obviously you're going to pay a little bit of a weight penalty, but they're pretty confident about this protection stopping flats and tears. Namely, if you flat one of these tyres or tear them, they'll give you a half-price replacement. That's a pretty killer deal. I'm unaware of any other tyre manufacturer offering that. Now it's time to throw the Krumbeins onto the gram scale and see how they stack up against spec weight versus reality weight. Onto the gram scale. $700 grams. Not a light tyre, but we knew that going into this review. Now bear in mind, this heavier weight comes from the tyre's max level flat protection and the fact these tyres are designed for some pretty gnarly off-road use, such as very adventurous cycling and more than likely some pretty serious bike packing. I wouldn't say this tyre is exactly a super high performance racing model. There's plenty of other tyre options out there for that sort of thing. Now it's time to see how the American Classic Krumbein tyre mounts up to some tubeless ready wheels. How's this for cool? American Classic Krumbein tyre mounted up to an original and mint condition American Classic Race 27.5. I used to use the American Classic wheels from the old days, as in a few years ago, extensively. The Bontrager TLR flash charger pump has a secondary cylinder loaded to about 120 psi. Valve coil's been removed, there's no sealant inside, hopefully the big shot of air pops this tyre onto the rim. Here we go. I need some extra air. Haven't got the pop sound yet, but we should have it soon. Well, the good news is this tyre is completely in the bead. There was no distinctive pop, but that tyre is mounted and holding air beautifully. Let's measure the Krumbein with the calipers. Looks like I need to change the battery in the calipers actually. 48.16 millimeters. Nice. That's the tyre mounting procedure covered. Let's see how the American Classic Krumbein tyre rides. Weighing bang on 700 grams, you will feel the weight of these tyres if you're more inclined towards performance type mixed surface cycling. 650B tyres always weigh more than 700C it seems, and the 700C by 40mm version of this tyre is spec'd at about 585 grams. Assuming that weight is spot on, it is difficult to question American Classic Stage 5S puncture protection in these tyres. I couldn't flat them, and I rode over all manner of bollocks in a fruitless attempt to puncture them. Despite the look of this tyre centre tread with its closely spaced lugs, it rides in a surprisingly sprightly manner on pavement or bitumen surfaces without a terrible amount of road noise. On mixed surface hardpack, they're very quick. The Krumbein isn't a tyre for spicy riding, pace changes and so on, so it's more suited to a nice tempo which benefits its weight once rolling to speed. You can run the Krumbein at very low pressure, 20 psi and so on, but that will depend on your body weight. The Krumbein is supremely grippy with heaps of traction on loose stuff and keeps you planted on corners. I feel the Krumbein is another tyre that qualifies well as a very good all-rounder, and like I mentioned earlier, could be a really sweet tyre for bike packing with a bunch of gear on board. The Krumbein also performs well in mud. There is very little mud pack-up. Your experience may differ in red clay type soils, but any mud that does collect clears very quickly. Here we are folks. This is part and parcel of reviewing tyres and components and more. Take your bike, throw it into a mud puddle, and I happen to know for a fact that the mud puddle is beyond axle deep right about there. The aggressive pattern of these tyres, they do pretty well in mud. I've ridden through this track a couple of times and it clears pretty quick. It's not the stickiest mud around. Well, the bike was sort of clean before I started this ride. Oh my God, covered in more crap. So it might be a tyre you want to consider if you're looking to do some pretty serious bike packing, bike slacking, mud riding, single track. Well, here we go. Oh man, I almost submerged my feet. Only through timing of the crank rotation did I miss dumping myself into that mud hole. My poor bloody drivetrain. Gonna need a bit of a rinse off after this business. Look how nicely the tyres have cleared out after just 100 meters or so of riding some sidewalk action here. The weight of this tyre does bother me, but at US $35 you cannot beat the price, and it could put a cat among the pigeons. The Krumbein is proof you don't need to spend a ton of money. I expect the 700C versions perform in a similar manner with less weight, and that is what I would ride if I chose to ride these tyres frequently. The Krumbeins are super easy to set up. They're an excellent all-rounder with an insane level of puncture protection and net price. $35, which in itself is pretty insane. If you're in the market for 650B or 700C for one of the toughest tyres on the market, the American Classic Krumbein could be for you. So there you have it, my review of the American Classic Krumbein tyre. Nowadays there is so many tyres available for your gravel bike, for your purchasing pleasure. So I hope that my review in some way in helping you make an informed purchase decision. When I started this madness way back in 2006, there was, I think, one tyre. I was running the Michelin Jet, which wasn't even a tubeless tyre, but I converted it to tubeless. So be thankful for all these choices. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the Gravel Cyclist YouTube channel for product reviews such as this. No bull gravel bike reviews, ride experience videos and other madness, as all of it is released to the channel. This is the most difficult and arduous part of the video. Getting the sunglasses. Where the hell are they? Oh my God, they're over here. What an error. I'll see you in the next video.